Olivia Langston had built her life on control until the moment it slipped entirely from her grasp in the middle of Newark International Airport. She was walking toward gate C-19, phone pressed to her ear, her assistant listing merger projections and media talking points, when her world fractured. 20 feet ahead, a man stood with two little girls. One of them was laughing so hard she nearly dropped her juice box. The other, more serious, tugged on his sleeve, her dark curls bouncing as she whispered something that made him smile. It wasn't the man's laughter that stopped Olivia in her tracks. It was the sound of it, the exact tone she'd once fallen in love with. Elijah Ford, her ex-husband. And those girls, the mirror of the life she'd left behind 6 years ago, were her daughters. For a moment, everything around her, the noise of the crowd, the distant intercom, the smell of burnt coffee, blurred into nothing. The world folded into a single unbearable truth. The family she had abandoned existed without her, thrived without her. Her assistant's voice droned through the phone. "Ms. Langston, Zurich is waiting for your call. We need your decision on—" Olivia ended the call without a word. She couldn't look away. Elijah was older now. His hair had silvered at the temples, but his shoulders still carried that quiet strength she'd always envied. One of the girls, Leah, she guessed, was twirling in her yellow sneakers, arms outstretched. The other, Ava, was helping her father pack snacks into a small backpack, her expression meticulous and intent. Olivia's pulse hammered in her throat. They were real. They were here, and they didn't know her. When Elijah turned toward her, their eyes met. For an instant, she saw it. Recognition, shock, pain, and then something worse. Composure. The kind of calm that comes from years of building a life that doesn't include you. He didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't move. He simply took the girls' hands and led them toward gate C-21. The younger one, Leah probably, glanced back once, curious, but only for a heartbeat. Then they were gone. Olivia stood there, a billionaire surrounded by noise and motion, but utterly hollow. She had no idea how long she stood like that before the gate attendant's voice broke through the fog. "Final boarding call for flight 1189 to Salt Lake City." Salt Lake. Her chest tightened. Of course. That's where he'd moved after the divorce. Small city, good schools, quiet life. She'd signed the custody papers without contesting, telling herself it was mercy, not cowardice. Her phone buzzed again. Zurich, investors, obligations. Her empire waited. But for the first time in 6 years, she didn't care. She walked to the counter. "Can you tell me if flight 1189 has already boarded?" The attendant checked. "They're closing the doors now." "Can you put me on the next one?" He blinked. "To Salt Lake City?" "Yes." Her voice was steady, her decision already made. "First class?" She hesitated. "Coach is fine." As he processed the ticket, she caught her reflection in the glass partition. Flawless hair, tailored suit, eyes that looked far too composed for someone whose entire life had just cracked open. She remembered the last night she'd seen Elijah, the baby sleeping in their crib, her hands shaking as she wrote the letter he would find the next morning. "I can't be what they need right now." She told herself it was temporary, that she would come back once she was strong enough. She never had. Now, watching the airport lights reflect on the glass, she realized strength had never been the issue. Fear had. Fear of breaking, of failing, of facing what love demanded. The printer beeped. The attendant handed her a ticket. "You're on the next flight out, gate B7. Olivia nodded, gripping the ticket like it might disintegrate if she loosened her hold. As she walked toward the gate, the world seemed to tilt, a gravitational pull toward the past she'd buried under success and headlines. She wasn't thinking about Zurich or the merger. She wasn't thinking at all. Only them. Elijah, who had once promised, "I'll wait for you to come back." The daughters she had only known through photos she was too afraid to ask for. And the version of herself she had lost somewhere between love and ambition. When she finally sat on the plane, the flight attendant smiled politely. "Salt Lake City, ma'am?" "Yes." "For business or pleasure?" Olivia almost laughed. "Something in between," she said. The engines roared. The ground fell away. And for the first time in years, she wasn't running toward the future. She was flying back into the past. She opened her phone, scrolling through contacts she hadn't touched in years until she found his name, Elijah Ford. Her thumb hovered over it, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears. She could still remember his voice, the sound of his piano in the evenings, the way he'd call her Liv, like it was a secret. She typed 2 words and hit send before she could stop herself. "It's me." The message whooshed away, tiny and irreversible. Outside her window, clouds stretched endlessly ahead, soft and gray, like a sky waiting for forgiveness. Olivia leaned back, eyes closed, whispering to herself, "Just one conversation. That's all I want." But deep down, she already knew this wasn't just one conversation. This was the beginning of everything she'd run from, and maybe the only way to find her way home. Salt Lake City looked nothing like the cities Olivia was used to conquering. No steel skylines, no endless motorcades or sharp echoing hallways of glass and ambition. Instead, there was air, quiet, wide, and startlingly blue, and mountains that seemed to watch from a distance, patient and unmoved. When her plane touched down, Olivia Langston, billionaire CEO of Aris Aviation, felt utterly anonymous. No reporters, no photographers, no assistants waiting with a clipboard and an agenda. Just her, a rental car, and the message she'd sent into the void. "It's me." He hadn't replied. She told herself she didn't expect him to, but she still checked her phone every few minutes like a teenager hoping for a miracle. By the time she reached her hotel, a modest, nameless place she'd chosen specifically because it didn't scream wealth or control, the message still sat there, unanswered. She dropped her luggage on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 6 years. 6 years since she'd left that small suburban house in Texas with a suitcase and a heart that couldn't handle its own weight. Now she'd come to find what was left of the man she'd once promised forever to, and the 2 little girls who probably didn't even remember her face. She thought she was prepared for silence, but silence from Elijah wasn't the same as silence from the world. It wasn't indifference, it was absence, and that hurt more. By noon, she couldn't sit still anymore. Old habits had returned like muscle memory. Olivia Langston didn't wait, she moved. A quick call to Cameron Reed, her trusted aide, and within an hour a secure file pinged into her inbox. She opened it slowly, already bracing herself. Subject, Elijah Ford. Occupation, music teacher, Salt Lake City School District address, East Fairmont Avenue medical record, confidential. ALS, diagnosed 18 months ago. Dependents, 2 daughters, Ava, 8, Leah, 8. No current partner. Her chest tightened as the words blurred on the screen. She read them again, slower this time, as if repetition could make them less cruel. ALS. Olivia pressed a hand to her forehead, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. She remembered the way his fingers used to move across the piano keys, deft and sure. The way he used to write songs on napkins, calling them little promises in ink. And now those same hands were failing him. The thought made her dizzy. For 6 years, she had told herself she'd left for the right reasons, for their safety, for their peace. She'd imagined him moving on, whole and happy, far from the woman who couldn't keep her own mind from fracturing. But this was worse than anything she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed. A text. Elijah Ford. "When did you land?" Olivia's breath caught. She read it 3 times, afraid it would disappear. Then she typed before she could think. Olivia. "Just now. I shouldn't have come without calling." The reply came quickly. Elijah. "No, you shouldn't have." She winced, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Olivia. "I saw you at the airport. I wasn't expecting to. I just..." She stopped herself. The truth felt too naked, too raw. Elijah. "You saw the girls. It wasn't a question." Olivia. "Yes?" Minutes passed. Then, Elijah. "They don't know who you are." Her throat constricted. Olivia. "I know." Elijah. "You should leave them be, Liv." Her eyes stung. Liv. He hadn't called her that in years. Olivia. "Can we talk? Just once. Please?" A long silence. Then the 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Elijah, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Cafe by Liberty Park. Her hands shook as she read the message. That night, sleep refused to come. She sat by the hotel window watching the city lights blink in slow rhythm, her mind playing the same memories in endless loop. Elijah's voice laughing as he held both girls in his arms. The smell of baby powder and rain. The night she left, the door closing with a sound that had felt final even then. Back then she had been drowning. The doctors had called it postpartum psychosis, but those sterile words didn't capture the terror of it. The visions, the irrational fear that she might harm the very children she loved more than life. She'd left because she believed distance would save them, but now that distance had turned to decay, and all she'd managed to save them from was herself. Her phone buzzed again, another message. For one hopeful heartbeat, she thought it might be him. It wasn't. It was Cameron. Cameron Reed. Ma'am, Zurich investors still waiting for confirmation? I can stall 48 hours max. She stared at the text for a long time before typing back. Olivia, cancel Zurich. Indefinitely. Cameron's reply came instantly. Cameron Reed. Are you sure? Olivia. Yes, I have something more important to do. She powered off the phone. Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the glass like a whisper she didn't deserve to hear. She closed her eyes and pictured Elijah as she'd seen him at the airport, older, quieter, still carrying the same quiet patience that had once steadied her. Tomorrow she would face him. Tomorrow she would face everything. And for the first time in 6 years, Olivia Langston wasn't planning for power or profit. She was planning to beg for forgiveness. The cafe near Liberty Park was smaller than she remembered. Then again, Olivia wasn't sure if she remembered anything right anymore. The air smelled of roasted coffee and cinnamon, a scent so warm it felt like betrayal. She arrived 15 minutes early and sat by the window, heart hammering in her throat. Outside, families walked their dogs under a sky brushed with morning light. Ordinary people, living ordinary lives. The kind of life she'd once believed she was too broken to deserve. At 10:02, Elijah walked in. He didn't scan the room. He didn't hesitate. He found her instantly. Her breath caught. 6 years apart hadn't erased him. His hair was threaded with silver now, his jaw sharper, his gait slower but steady. He carried himself like a man who learned to move through pain without letting it define him. When he reached her table, she stood. Elijah, he nodded. Olivia. The way he said her name, measured, quiet, felt like both greeting and accusation. He took the seat across from her. No hug, no handshake, just space, distance. The waitress came by smiling. Coffee? Black, he said. Same, Olivia murmured. When the waitress left, silence settled between them. It wasn't the comfortable kind they'd once shared, when words weren't needed. This one was heavy, suffocating. Finally, Elijah broke it. You look different. Older? She tried to joke. Lonely? The word hit harder than she expected. She smiled faintly, but her eyes betrayed her. You're not wrong. He studied her, his gaze calm but unyielding. Why now, Liv? The name softened her instantly. Because I saw you at the airport. His brow furrowed. You were there? She nodded. You and the girls were boarding. I froze. He leaned back, exhaling. You should have kept walking. I couldn't. He looked away, his jaw tightening. You had 6 years to decide that. I know. Her voice trembled. And I regret every one of them. The waitress returned with their coffee. Neither touched it. When she was gone, Elijah folded his hands on the table, and Olivia noticed the tremor. Subtle but real. His fingers, those hands that once played sonatas into the early morning, shook slightly against the white mug. She swallowed hard. Cameron sent me your file. His eyes lifted sharply. You had someone investigate me? I didn't mean to invade. You always mean to control, he said quietly. Even now. The truth stung. She didn't argue. I had to know about the diagnosis. He didn't flinch this time. So you know. Her throat tightened. ALS. I didn't believe it at first. He nodded once, slow and steady. Neither did I. The silence returned, thicker now, weighted with grief neither wanted to name. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? Leaving or pitying me? For all of it. He studied her for a long moment, eyes searching her face for something. Remorse, sincerity, maybe both. You always had the right words, Liv. You just never stayed long enough to prove them. She closed her eyes briefly. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I came here because I need you to know why I left. Elijah's expression hardened. You think it matters now? It matters to me. He didn't stop her, so she kept going. After the girls were born, something happened to me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I'd hear them crying even when they weren't. I started to imagine things, terrible things. The doctors called it postpartum psychosis. I thought if I stayed, I'd hurt them. Her voice cracked. So I ran. Elijah sat still, his jaw slack with quiet disbelief. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, she said. I left because I didn't trust myself not to destroy everything I loved. For a long moment he said nothing. Then softly, you should have told me. I couldn't even say it out loud. Not then. He rubbed his temple, exhaling slowly. 6 years live, 6 birthdays, 6 Christmases. Leah still sleeps with the bear you gave her the day you left. Ava stopped asking about you 3 years ago. Her chest ached. I don't expect them to forgive me. He met her eyes and she saw exhaustion there. Years of single parenthood, grief, and quiet resilience. Then why are you here? Because I want to make it right before it's too late. He gave a soft, bitter laugh. Too late for what? For me? Her voice broke. For all of us. He looked down, his hand trembling again. When he noticed her watching, he hid it under the table. You don't get to swoop back in and fix this, Leave. That's not how life works. I'm not here to fix it, she said. I'm here to stay. If you'll let me. He leaned back in his chair, regarding her carefully. You don't even know them. You can't just drop in and expect. I don't expect anything, she interrupted. Just a chance. He was quiet for a while, lost in thought. Then finally he said, Thursday morning, Liberty Rink. They skate before school. Her heart jumped. You mean it? I mean, if you want to be in their lives, you'll start by showing up. She nodded quickly. I will. He stood, leaving a few bills on the table. Then we'll see. She rose too. Elijah. He paused but didn't turn back. I'm not leaving again, she said softly. He gave a faint, tired smile over his shoulder. You already did. Then he walked away, the door's small bell chiming as it closed behind him. Olivia sank back into her chair, staring at the untouched coffee growing cold before her. 6 years ago, she had walked out of a life too heavy to hold. Now she was trying to walk back into one she might never deserve. Thursday morning dawned pale and uncertain. Olivia sat in her rental car outside Liberty Rink, fingers tapping the steering wheel, heart pounding loud enough to fill the silence. Her reflection in the windshield looked foreign. Expensive coat, neat hair, every detail perfectly in place. The kind of perfection that used to comfort her. Now it only made her feel like a fraud. Inside the glass building, children glided across the ice like feathers, laughter echoing through the cold air. The twins were easy to spot, Ava graceful and composed, Leah chaotic and brilliant, crashing, spinning, then rising with unshakable joy. And beside them, Elijah stood at the railing, his cane balanced against the bench. He hadn't seen her yet. Olivia hesitated, hand on the door. For a moment she considered running, driving straight back to the airport, to the life she knew how to navigate. But then Leah fell on the ice, laughing so hard she couldn't get up, and something inside Olivia cracked open. She got out of the car. The cold air hit her immediately, sharp and clean. She stepped inside, her heels clicking against the tile, drawing a few curious glances from the parents nearby. She traded her shoes for skates, her fingers trembling as she tightened the laces. When she finally stepped through the gate onto the ice, Elijah turned. Their eyes met, and for a second she saw everything that had existed between them. Love, anger, fear, loss, all compressed into a single heartbeat. You came, he said quietly. I said I would. He nodded, his expression unreadable. They don't know yet. I figured. Take it slow, he murmured. I'm not sure I know how, she said. A faint smile ghosted across his lips. You'll remember. Leah spotted her first. Dad, who's that? Elijah hesitated only briefly. That's someone I want you to meet. Leah skated toward her, all speed and sunshine. Hi, she said breathlessly. I like your coat. It's shiny. Olivia crouched down, trying not to cry. Thank you. You're Leah, right? Leah nodded proudly. How'd you know? I guessed. You look like you laugh a lot. The girl giggled. I do. Ava glided over then, slower, more cautious. She didn't smile. Dad? Elijah's voice was gentle. This is your mom. The world seemed to still. Ava's eyes narrowed. You mean her? Leah blinked, confused. Our mom? The one from the pictures? Olivia's throat tightened. Yes, she whispered. It's me. Leah grinned. Cool. She skated off again, spinning clumsily. Watch this, Mom. The word hit Olivia like sunlight after a storm. Mom. But Ava didn't move. She studied Olivia with a gaze far too old for her age. You left, she said flatly. Olivia swallowed. I did. Why? Because I was sick. Because I was scared. Because I didn't know how to be someone's mother when I could barely be myself. The words sat heavy on her tongue, but she managed only, It's complicated. Ava crossed her arms. Dad says things are only complicated when people don't want to tell the truth. Olivia looked over at Elijah. He didn't intervene. His expression said everything. You have to earn this. You're right, Olivia said finally. I was afraid, and I made the wrong choice. Ava held her gaze for a long moment, then skated away without a word. Leah returned, beaming. Did you see my spin? Olivia forced a smile. I did. It was perfect. Elijah stepped beside her. You didn't fall, he said quietly. Not yet, she replied, though her voice trembled. He chuckled softly. That's something. For the next hour, Olivia watched, laughed when Leah demanded her attention, and silently studied Ava, reserved, precise, a small mirror of the woman Olivia used to be. Every time Ava looked away from her, it hurt, but she didn't blame her. Forgiveness, she knew, had to be earned one morning at a time. When practice ended, Leah insisted Olivia join them on the ice. I don't think that's a good idea, Olivia said. Come on, Mom. It's easy. Leah skated circles around her, nearly colliding with a wall. Elijah grinned. She gets her grace from you. Ha ha, Olivia muttered, but she stepped onto the ice anyway. The cold bit through her gloves. Her legs wobbled immediately. Oh no! Leah grabbed her hand. I got you! Ava from the sidelines smirked. You're supposed to bend your knees. I am bending them. More. She tried. It didn't help. A moment later, she slipped spectacularly, landing flat on the ice. The sound startled everyone around them, except Leah, who burst out laughing. You fell, she shrieked. That was awesome. Olivia couldn't help it. She started laughing too. The kind of deep, unguarded laugh she hadn't felt in years. Elijah's voice drifted from the bench. You're bleeding. She glanced down. Her knee was scraped. I'll survive. Maybe, he said dryly. Ava's smirk softened just slightly. You were better than I thought. Thank you, I think. When they finally left the ring, Leah held her hand the whole way to the car. You're coming again, right? Olivia hesitated, glancing at Elijah. He gave a small nod. Yes, she said. Every week, if that's okay. Leah squeezed her hand. It's more than okay. Ava didn't say anything, but when she climbed into the back seat, she didn't sit as far away this time. As they drove off, Olivia looked out the window, her heart pounding with something new. Not guilt, not fear, but fragile hope. She hadn't earned forgiveness yet, but she'd shown up, and maybe, just maybe, that was how you started to stay. The first thaw of spring came early that year, melting the last of the snow along the sidewalks and filling the gutters with rushing water. Olivia stood at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, flipping pancakes while the smell of butter and syrup filled the air. Leah was already chattering away at the table, legs swinging, drawing smiley faces in the condensation on her orange juice glass. Ava sat across from her, reading quietly, the sunlight turning her hair gold. The scene was so ordinary, so heartbreakingly normal, that it hurt to breathe. Mom, Leah said, mouthful, you put chocolate chips in these. Olivia smiled. You said that's the best part. It is, Leah declared, grinning. Ava didn't look up from her book. You burned the first batch. Olivia raised an eyebrow. That's true. Ava's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Dad doesn't burn them. Olivia's tone softened. No, he's better at pancakes. From the living room, Elijah's voice drifted in. That's the first honest thing she said all morning. They all laughed. The sound was light, easy. For a brief, perfect moment, Olivia let herself believe that the ache between what was and what is could finally blur into something whole. By afternoon, Elijah was asleep on the couch, the blanket pulled up to his chest, his cane resting beside him. His breathing had become more shallow lately, uneven. Olivia sat nearby, pretending to read, but her eyes never left him. Every so often his hand trembled, a reminder of how little time they had left. She had come back hoping to fix things, to be forgiven, to find some version of redemption. But now, watching him fade quietly in front of her, she realized that wasn't what this was about anymore. She wasn't here to fix the past. She was here to hold on to what was left of the present. Mom? Olivia looked up. Ava stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Can we talk? Of course. Ava sat down on the armchair across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ava said softly, He's getting worse, isn't he? Olivia hesitated. A little. I can tell. He drops things more now. Olivia nodded. Sometimes his muscles don't listen the way they used to. Ava's gaze dropped to her lap. He says it's okay, but I don't think it is. Olivia swallowed. He doesn't want you to be scared. Ava's voice cracked slightly. But I am. Olivia reached over and took her hand. Ava didn't pull away. It's okay to be scared, she said. I am too. For the first time, Ava looked at her, really looked. Why did you come back, Mom? The question was simple, but it felt like an earthquake. Olivia thought of all the answers she could give. Guilt, love, redemption, the need to feel whole again. None of them seemed right. I came back, she said finally, because I was tired of being afraid. I thought if I left, I could protect everyone from me. But I was wrong. I only made it worse. So now I'm here to try again, if you'll let me. Ava studied her in silence. Then, so quietly Olivia almost missed it, she said, You should stay. Tears burned behind Olivia's eyes. I plan to. That night, the rain started, a steady rhythm against the roof. Olivia stood at the sink washing dishes when she heard the crash. She ran into the living room. Elijah was on the floor beside the piano, his coffee mug shattered beside him. Elijah! She dropped to her knees. What happened? He winced, trying to push himself up. Just slipped. Don't move. Her hands shook as she helped him sit upright, her heart hammering. You should have called me. I didn't want to wake you. You weren't supposed to fall, she snapped, panic edging her voice. He gave a weak chuckle. Didn't plan on it. She swallowed hard, pressing a trembling hand to her forehead. You need to rest. You can't keep pretending you're fine. His voice softened. If I stop pretending, it means it's real. It is real. I know, he whispered. But I don't want the girls to see it yet. They already do, she said quietly. He looked at her, eyes glassy but calm. Then help me make it easier for them. Please. She nodded, her throat tightening. Always. He leaned back against the couch, his breathing slow and uneven. You were always stubborn. I learned from the best. For a moment, they just sat there, the rain whispering against the windows. Then Elijah said, Remember the song I started before you left? Olivia blinked. The one without an ending? He smiled faintly. Maybe you can finish it. Her chest ached. I'll try. He closed his eyes, his hand finding hers. You already are. The next morning, she called a nurse from the clinic to schedule in-home support. Elijah protested, of course, but she didn't care. She'd spent too many years running away from responsibility. She wouldn't run from this. When the girls came home from school, Leah dropped her backpack and climbed onto Elijah's lap, hugging him tight. Ava hovered nearby, watching. Elijah smiled at them both. Hey, my stars! Leah grinned. Mom made pancakes again. Did she burn them? Only one, Leah said proudly. Elijah looked at Olivia over Leah's shoulder, a spark of humor in his tired eyes. Progress. Olivia smiled, her heart breaking and mending at once. That night, after the girls were asleep, she sat at the piano. The melody was still there, faint but familiar, like a memory waiting to be touched. She played the first few notes, hesitant, imperfect. Then she began to hum, soft and low. Upstairs, she could hear Elijah's uneven breathing, the sound that both grounded and haunted her. She closed her eyes, letting the music carry her. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about the woman she used to be, or the one she was trying to become. She was just there, in the house that had once been broken but now felt alive again, surrounded by laughter, by forgiveness, by love. And as her fingers moved across the keys, she realized something profound and terrifying. She wasn't afraid anymore. Spring deepened into something gentle and green. The air smelled of rain and budding flowers, and life in the Ford household found a rhythm again. Fragile, imperfect, but real. Each morning, Olivia helped pack lunches and untangle hair ribbons, and each evening, she read to Leah while Ava practiced piano in the next room. The house was smaller than she remembered, but it breathed now, filled with music and laughter instead of silence. Elijah was still the center of it, even as his strength waned. Some days he moved slower, some days his words came out thick with fatigue. But he smiled anyway, especially when the girls clambered into his lap or when Olivia burned yet another batch of toast. He'd always said love wasn't in the grand gestures, it was in the persistence, and now every ordinary day was proof of that. One afternoon, Olivia came home to find Ava sitting at the piano, a stack of sheet music beside her. The melody that filled the room was hesitant, full of searching pauses. It was one of Elijah's pieces, unfinished, the one he'd written years ago. When Ava noticed her watching, she stopped. "I can't make it work," she muttered, frustrated. Olivia stepped closer. "You're doing beautifully." Ava frowned. "It doesn't sound right. It stops where it shouldn't." Olivia smiled faintly. "That's because he never finished it." Ava turned to her, eyes wide. "Why not?" "He said he was waiting for the right ending." Ava studied the sheet. "Maybe it's supposed to end like this. Maybe not everything has to be finished." Olivia looked at her daughter, so much of Elijah in her calm, her clarity. "Maybe," she agreed softly, "but sometimes things get their ending when we're ready to listen for it." Ava didn't answer, but her gaze softened. Then after a moment, she said, "You should play with me." Olivia hesitated. "It's been a long time." Ava scooted over on the bench, patting the space beside her. "Then it's time." Olivia sat, her hands trembling slightly as she placed them on the keys. The first few notes were awkward, uncertain, but then something in her muscle memory awakened. Together they began to play. Ava's tempo was steady, Olivia's softer, almost wistful. The two melodies met in the middle like a conversation long overdue. When the last note faded, Ava looked up. "That was better," Olivia smiled. "It was." Ava didn't say anything else, but before she left the room, she whispered, "Thanks, Mom." It was the first time she'd said it without hesitation. That night after the girls had gone to bed, Olivia found Elijah sitting on the porch, his blanket around his shoulders, the stars reflected in his tired eyes. "You should be resting," she said quietly. "I am," he replied, smiling faintly. "Just resting with a better view." She sat beside him. The night air was cool, the world hushed except for crickets and the distant hum of cars. "You're good with them," he said after a long pause. "Better than you think." Olivia's throat tightened. "I'm trying." He turned toward her. "You don't have to try so hard anymore, Liv. They already love you. They just needed to see you meant it." She stared at her hands. "Do you?" He looked down at the blanket, at his shaking fingers. "I never stopped." The words broke her open. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not," he said gently. "But love isn't about deserving. It's about staying when it hurts." She took a trembling breath. "Then I'm staying." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I know." A silence settled between them, heavy but tender. After a while, Elijah said softly, "When I'm gone, don't. Live." His voice was steady, though the tremor in his hand wasn't. "You'll need to tell them stories, about us, about who you were before the fear." Her eyes filled. "I don't want to talk about after." "You have to," he said, a faint smile touching his lips. "Because that's what love does. It turns endings into beginnings." She leaned into him then, resting her head against his shoulder. He smelled faintly of cedar and the lemon soap he'd always used. His hand trembled as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "Neither am I," he murmured. "That's the point." The next day, the school sent home a flyer. Family Story Day. Parents welcome to share a story or memory with their child's class. Leah waved it in the air. "You'll come, right, Mom?" Olivia hesitated. "Do you want me to?" Leah looked at her as if it were the silliest question in the world. "Of course. Everyone else's moms come. Ava said you tell the best stories." Olivia blinked. "She did." Leah nodded, beaming. "You have to." Later that night, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at a blank sheet of paper. She could talk about business, or ambition, or the lessons of loss, but none of those were what her daughters needed to hear. Finally, she began to write. Her story wasn't about a billionaire or a CEO. It was about a fox who lost her way in the snow, convinced she'd never find home again. But one day, she saw tiny paw prints ahead, two small, steady trails leading her back through the storm. When she finished writing, she sat back, tears blurring the ink. From the next room came the faint sound of Elijah's breathing, uneven but still steady. Olivia closed her eyes, whispering into the dark. "I'll tell them, Eli, I promise." And for the first time since she came back, the promise didn't feel like guilt. It felt like love finally finding its way home. The morning of Family Story Day came wrapped in sunlight and nerves. Olivia stood in front of the bathroom mirror, smoothing the wrinkles from her blouse, wondering why her hands still shook. It wasn't the crowd. She'd stood before hundreds of investors, entire boards of directors, even global audiences. But this wasn't a speech. It was a promise. In the kitchen, Leah was humming loudly as she stuffed crayons into her backpack. Ava sat at the table, trying to look unimpressed but tapping her foot in rhythm anyway. "You're nervous," Ava said without looking up. Olivia laughed softly. "That obvious?" "Only a little," Ava said, hiding a smile behind her juice glass. Elijah appeared in the doorway, leaning against his cane. He was pale today, but his eyes were bright, filled with something quiet and proud. "They're lucky," he said. "Most parents just read about dinosaurs or fairy tales." Olivia glanced at him. "I'm not sure mine will be any less strange." "Then it'll be perfect," he said, and kissed her forehead. The classroom smelled of crayons, glue, and the sweetness of childhood. Parents filled the small chairs that creaked under their weight, murmuring greetings. Leah waved wildly when she saw Olivia. Ava gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. The teacher smiled. "We're so happy you could join us, Mrs. Ford." Olivia's throat tightened slightly at the name. Ford. Not Langston. Not the one tied to her company, her mistakes, her walls. Just Ford. The name she'd let slip through her fingers once, and now carried like something sacred. When it was her turn, she stood at the front of the class, her story folded neatly in her hand. The paper trembled, but her voice didn't. "Once," she began, "there was a fox who lived in a great forest." The children leaned forward. Leah's eyes sparkled. Ava's expression softened. "The fox loved her home, but one winter a storm came, loud and frightening. The snow was so deep that she couldn't find her way back. She thought she was lost forever." Olivia paused, her eyes flicking toward Elijah, who sat quietly at the back of the room, watching her. "But one day," she continued, "she saw two small paw prints in the snow. They were tiny and brave and certain, heading toward the sunrise. And even though she was scared, she followed them." Her voice softened. "The path was long. She fell. She got cold. Sometimes she wanted to turn back, but she kept going because she believed those little paw prints were leading her home." Leah gasped. "Did she find it?" Olivia smiled through the ache in her chest. "Yes, and when she did, she realized she hadn't just found her way home. She'd found herself again." The class clapped. Leah jumped up, hugging her mid-story, her little arms tight around Olivia's waist. Ava didn't move, but her eyes glistened. And when Olivia looked at her, Ava mouthed a quiet thank you. For the first time in years, Olivia didn't feel like an outsider in her own story. Later that evening, the sky turned to watercolor hues, peach and violet melting into one another. Elijah sat by the window with a blanket over his knees, watching the girls chase each other across the yard. Their laughter floated through the open door like music. You did well today, he said when Olivia joined him. I almost didn't make it through without crying. That's how you know it was real. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. They're starting to forgive me. He smiled faintly. They never stopped wanting to. The wind carried the sound of Ava's voice, patient, instructing, while Leah shouted with endless energy. They're so different, Olivia said. Ava plans everything. Leah just leaps. Like us, Elijah murmured. She chuckled. You were always the planner. And you were the leap. He coughed then, a deep, hollow sound that made her chest seize. She reached for him instinctively, but he lifted a hand. I'm okay. You're not, she said softly. Not really. He turned to her, his eyes kind and tired. Liv, I need you to promise me something. Anything. When I can't do this anymore, he said, his voice faltering. Don't let them see fear. Let them see love instead. Let them see you strong. Tears filled her eyes. You think I can be? I know you already are. The porch fell silent except for the soft creak of the swing. The scent of rain lingered in the air. After a while, he whispered, I heard you playing my song last night. She smiled faintly. I'm still terrible. Maybe, but it sounded finished. She blinked, startled. I didn't finish it. He turned his head toward her, his eyes catching the last light of sunset. Yes, you did. You just didn't realize it. They sat together as the first stars appeared, the air cool and golden. Leah's laughter echoed, Ava's voice followed, and for a moment everything felt suspended. Fragile, luminous, infinite. That night after the girls went to bed, Olivia walked to the piano. The sheet music was still open from the day before, Elijah's handwriting looping across the yellowed paper. She traced the final bars with her fingertips. It really was finished. 4 simple notes she hadn't noticed before. A quiet echo that resolved everything that had once felt incomplete. Her breath caught. She played it once, softly, then again and again. The melody filled the room like a prayer, whispered too late, but still heard. When she turned, Elijah was standing in the doorway, smiling weakly. See, he said, you always knew how to end it. She crossed the room and kissed his forehead. You're still my favorite liar. He chuckled, then leaned against her, the weight of him heavier than before. Then lie with me a little longer, he murmured. She held him until the tremors in his hands stilled, until his breathing evened out, until the night wrapped around them both. Outside, the rain began again, soft and steady, like applause for a story still unfolding. The morning Elijah didn't wake was quiet, too quiet. The sunlight through the curtains was soft and gold, the kind of light that usually coaxed him from sleep with a low hum or the shuffle of his cane against the floor. But today there was nothing, only stillness. Olivia stood in the doorway, her pulse pounding in her ears. He looked peaceful, his hands folded loosely over his chest, the faintest smile on his lips. For a heartbeat, she thought he was just resting. Then she saw the way his chest didn't rise, the way the color had left his face, and the truth hit like a storm breaking inside her. Her knees buckled. Eli! Her voice broke as she stumbled to his bedside. She touched his hand, cool, unmoving. No, not yet. Please. The world tilted. The air became heavy, thick with disbelief. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared herself, or so she thought. But nothing could prepare her for the silence of him being gone. She pressed her forehead against his hand, her tears falling freely now. You said you'd stay until spring, she whispered. You promised. Down the hall, the floor creaked. Leah appeared first, her hair wild from sleep. Mom? She mumbled. Why are you crying? Olivia froze. Ava followed, already sensing something was wrong. Her gaze moved from Olivia to Elijah, and the understanding came all at once. Her face went pale. Dad? Olivia turned, trying to find the words. There weren't any. Sweetheart, Leah blinked, confused. Is he sick again? Ava's voice was small but steady. No, he's gone. Leah's face crumpled. No, he's not. He can't be. She rushed forward, climbing onto the bed, shaking his arm. Dad, wake up. We have skating. You promised. Olivia tried to pull her back, but Leah resisted, sobbing so hard her small body shook. Ava stood by the door, frozen, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. Olivia gathered them both, one arm around each, holding them tightly as if she could keep the world from falling apart by sheer force. "It's okay," she whispered through her own tears. "It's okay to cry. He loved you so much." They stayed like that for a long time, three broken pieces of a family clinging to what was left. The days that followed passed in slow motion. Neighbors brought casseroles and flowers. The church sent a counselor. Olivia managed the arrangements with mechanical efficiency, her hands steady even when her heart wasn't. But at night, when the house grew quiet, she played his song, over and over. The melody filled the empty rooms like a heartbeat, trying to remember how to keep going. The funeral was small, as he wanted. Music instead of sermons, stories instead of speeches. Leah placed a drawing inside the casket, a family of 4 stick figures holding hands. Ava played the final piece he'd written, her fingers trembling but sure. When it was Olivia's turn to speak, she stood before the gathered friends and family and looked at the man who had once been her anchor. "I used to think love meant being perfect," she said, "that if I couldn't hold everything together, I wasn't worthy of it. Elijah taught me that love isn't about being unbreakable. It's about showing up, even when you already are. He stayed when I ran. He forgave when I couldn't. And he taught me the most important thing I'll ever know, how to stay even when it hurts." Her voice caught. He finished his song, but I think, somehow, we're the ones meant to keep playing it. She looked at the girls, both of them so small and yet carrying pieces of him that would never fade. "We'll keep it alive," she whispered. That night, after everyone was gone, Olivia sat alone on the porch, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The stars above were brilliant, sharp, and infinite. The door creaked behind her. Ava stepped out, wrapped in one of Elijah's sweaters. "Can't sleep?" Olivia shook her head. "You either." Ava sat beside her. "Leah's been crying in her sleep. I didn't know what to do." "You did enough just by being there," Olivia said softly. For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the night. Then Ava said, "Before he died, Dad told me something." Olivia turned. "What did he say?" "He said when you play music, the notes never really disappear. They just travel. They keep going somewhere you can't hear yet." Ava's eyes glistened. "Do you think that's true?" Olivia smiled through her tears. "I think it's the truest thing I've ever heard." Ava nodded, leaning against her shoulder. "Then he's still here." Olivia looked up at the stars. "Yes, sweetheart, he is." The wind stirred, brushing past them like a whisper, carrying the faint scent of cedar and rain. The next morning the house was quieter but not empty. Leah woke early and padded into the living room, rubbing her eyes. "Can you play Dad's song?" she asked. Olivia hesitated. "Would you like to play it with me?" Leah nodded. Ava joined them, sleepy but smiling faintly. Together the three sat at the piano, the same one Elijah had played every night before his hands betrayed him. Olivia started the melody, slow and deliberate. Ava followed, her notes clean and steady. Leah hummed along, off-key but full of heart. As they played, the house filled again, with warmth, with light, with the echoes of something unbroken. When the final chord faded, Leah whispered, "That sounded like him." Olivia smiled through tears. "That was him." Ava closed the piano lid gently. "Then we'll keep playing." "Yes," Olivia said, pulling them both close. "Always." Outside, the morning light streamed through the windows, painting the walls gold. The music lingered in the air long after they stopped, like a promise, a quiet assurance that love, once given, never truly leaves. Weeks passed, and the world outside began to bloom again. The trees outside the Ford house were dusted with new green, and sunlight poured through the windows in long, patient streaks. Grief, Olivia learned, didn't come in waves. It came in circles. It would quiet for a day, then return with a smell, a sound, a note from a piano key pressed by accident. But amid the ache, life continued. She made sure of it. Each morning she packed lunches for the girls, tied Leah's shoelaces, reminded Ava not to forget her music binder. And every night she tucked them in with a new story, always ending with the same line Elijah used to say, "Love stays." Some nights Leah would ask her to play. Other nights, Ava would sit at the piano first, her fingers gliding through their father's unfinished pieces. Olivia would listen, eyes closed, feeling every note vibrate through her bones. One evening, as the girls colored at the kitchen table, Olivia sat at the desk sorting through Elijah's papers. Bills, lesson plans, a few letters from his students, and at the bottom, an envelope with her name written in his unmistakable handwriting. Her breath caught. She turned it over, fingers trembling, before sliding it open. Inside was a single sheet of music. The title at the top read, "Home Again." Her eyes blurred with tears before she even played a note. She moved to the piano, smoothing the paper across the stand. The melody began simple, gentle, deliberate, as if written by someone who knew time was short. Halfway through, she found a passage unlike his usual style. The rhythm shifted, full of longing but also resolve. It was hers, the way she played, the way she felt. She realized then that he had written it for her, to finish, to carry forward. When she looked up, both girls were standing in the doorway, watching. "What is it?" Ava asked softly. "It's something your dad left for us," Olivia said. "The last song." Leah climbed onto the piano bench beside her. "Can we play it together?" Ava hesitated. "We don't know how it goes." Olivia smiled through tears. "Then we'll learn." She started slowly, the first notes trembling out of the silence. Ava joined after a moment, matching her rhythm. Then Leah, humming under her breath, filling in the gaps with something innocent and alive. The sound that filled the room wasn't perfect, but it was whole. When the last chord faded, Leah grinned. "We should play that for people." Olivia blinked. "People?" Ava glanced at her sister. "There's a recital coming up. Mr. Harlan said families can perform together." Leah nodded eagerly. "You could play with us, Mom. For Dad." Olivia hesitated, staring at the music sheet. A year ago, she wouldn't have dared. But now, after everything, they were more than ready. "All right," she said finally, smiling. "Let's do it." The night of the recital came with spring rain. The auditorium smelled faintly of wet coats and flowers. Children in pressed clothes chattered nervously backstage while parents adjusted cameras. Olivia sat between her daughters, holding both their hands. Leah's was warm and restless. Ava's was cool and steady. The combination felt exactly like home. When their names were called, a hush fell. Olivia walked onto the stage with them, the lights soft and golden. She sat at the piano, Ava beside her, Leah clutching her small violin. The audience blurred into nothing. Ava nodded once. "Ready," Olivia smiled. "Always." They began. The opening notes floated through the hall, soft, searching, familiar. Ava's playing was precise, confident. Leah's violin added warmth, the sound of light breaking through gray, and Olivia's hands moved with a calm she hadn't known she possessed. Every chord was a memory. Elijah's laughter, the smell of rain, the sound of their daughters learning to skate. Halfway through, Leah faltered on a note. Olivia caught her eye and whispered, "Keep going." Leah took a breath, lifted her bow, and continued. By the final chorus, all three of them were smiling through tears. The melody swelled. 3 voices, 3 hearts, bound by one love. When the last note lingered and faded, the audience rose in applause. Leah giggled. Ava wiped her eyes discreetly. Olivia bowed her head, the weight of both girls' hands grounding her in the present. It wasn't just a performance, it was a promise kept. Later that night, they returned home to a quiet house. Leah fell asleep almost instantly, her violin still tucked beside her on the bed. Ava found Olivia in the living room, staring at the piano. "You did great tonight," Ava said. "So did you." Ava hesitated, then asked, "Do you think he heard us?" Olivia looked up, her gaze softening. "I think he was playing with us." Ava smiled, and for the first time since Elijah's death, her eyes were free of the shadow that had lingered there. "Then I guess we did okay." "Better than okay," Olivia whispered. Ava leaned against her side, silent for a moment. "You know, Dad used to say that songs never really end. They just wait for someone else to play the next verse." Olivia's chest ached with love. He was right. When Ava went to bed, Olivia sat at the piano once more. The music sheet for Home Again lay open. She played the final bars softly, her fingers steady. This time she added one new line, hers alone. Something small, tender, hopeful. It wasn't an ending, it was a continuation. She finished, closed her eyes, and whispered, "We're home, Eli. You can rest now." Outside, the rain had stopped. The wind carried the scent of spring through the open window. The house no longer felt empty. It felt alive, with laughter, with memory, with love that had learned how to stay. Summer arrived quietly that year. Soft mornings, warm evenings, and sunlight that lingered on the horizon a little longer each day. The Ford house had changed. The silence that once haunted it had turned into music and laughter, into the rhythm of a home rebuilt. On weekends, the windows were always open, letting in the hum of the neighborhood and the smell of lilacs from the garden Elijah had planted years ago. Olivia stood on the porch, barefoot, a cup of coffee in her hand. From inside came the faint sound of Leah's violin and Ava's piano. The two girls were practicing the same song, their father's song, but in different rooms, out of sync and yet perfectly fitting together, like the echoes of one heartbeat split in two. It was the sound of healing. She smiled, closing her eyes for a moment. Some days the ache of loss still sat heavy in her chest, a quiet reminder of everything they'd weathered. But now, it no longer felt like drowning. It felt like remembering. Leah appeared in the doorway, violin bow in hand. "Mom, can we go to the park later? The big one, where the ducks are." "After breakfast," Olivia said, laughing, "if your sister finishes her scales." From the piano room, Ava's voice called out, "I heard that." "Good," Olivia replied. "Then you know the terms." Leah giggled and ran off again. Olivia stayed on the porch a moment longer, sipping her coffee, watching the light fall across the garden. She could almost see Elijah there, kneeling in the soil, humming under his breath, looking up at her with that wry smile that always said, "I told you, love stays." That afternoon, the girls sprawled across the living room floor, surrounded by colored pencils and paper. Leah was drawing a house, big windows, tall trees, three figures out front. Ava was writing, her neat handwriting looping carefully across the page. "What are you working on?" Olivia asked. "Poem," Ava said. "For school. It's supposed to be about someone who changed us." Olivia smiled faintly. "Who did you?"